Lego Batman, Legacy of the Dark Knight, Unstoppable, and The Boroughs. This is Staying In.
Pete's not here, so we don't have to talk about my feet if you don't want to.
I mean, do you have any good foot anecdotes to share with us? Had you prepped anything?
It was the half marathon. Thanks for remembering, Dan.
Where Sam's feet exploded, Dan.
Yes.
Don't you remember?
Oh, the one foot anecdote was your one. I want to hear about it.
Really?
The closest I've ever come to a marathon is applying for it and then accepting a jacket instead of doing it. So that's as close as I've ever got.
Have you eaten a Snickers?
I was about to say the Snickers.
I've not eaten a Snickers.
You've never eaten a Snickers? Oh,
Well,
you don't like.
I don't
like nuts.
I don't like nuts. So
Right.
Snickers isn't for me.
You can't buy class, can you?
So Sam, let's hear this story. I've heard it's quite the feat.
Well, it's become quite the feat because, my feet have just turned into absolute. It's like a war grave down there. You know, it's just awful. I did a half marathon the other week, and it was at the Jubilee Bridge, which you might know if you live in the northwest. It's a big steel suspension bridge, and that's where we started our run, and that is where the run finished. And it was a really nice, picturesque place to have a run. I think that's kind of what attracts a lot of people to it. But the start of the run was really nice, running over this lovely iron, steel or whatever metal bridge, and then ran straight into an industrial estate. And it was like brilliant. That smelled of eggs. Fantastic. And I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. Then as the race was going on, having a grand old time, listening to some podcasts, just chilling out. When it comes to running, the first thing, I don't tend to like loops as a race. I don't tend to like to...
Really?
Well, let me put it this way.
You don't mean loop-de-loops?
I don't like to do loop-de-loop.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, or listening to the same podcast over and over again.
Yeah, I like to do loops, as in, ideally, if I'm doing a race or any run, I like to finish where I started. That'll be great. Thank you very much.
Just for travel and parking.
Yeah.
But the one thing I don't enjoy is for that loop to be returning the same way that I came. If that makes sense.
Yes. No, I agree with you on that. That is really
coming back
not
on
enjoyable.
yourself as
retracing your steps. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what this run was. It was, sort of 6-7 miles out and then 6-7 miles back.
Right. So you didn't just do the bridge repeatedly back and forth for the duration.
Well, the bridge was an issue, right? Because we started on this lovely bridge, went out, run through this awful industrial estate, finally got to some nice countryside, and we're running along there. Then got to a bit where they give you all a nice energy gel. Fantastic. Slam that. Off we go. And then you turn a corner, and then just in the distance, you can just see the bridge in the haze, and you're like, oh no. I think that's first of all where I suffered a bit of fatigue. Definitely sort of started, the mental fatigue got in. And also knowing that I've got to do everything that I've just done, which sounds like a very obvious and silly thing to say, but when it comes to running, I've always believed that 90% of it is mental. And knowing that you've got to do what you have just done can be quite exhausting, especially if it's a race that you've never done before.
Yeah, that is a big thing.
Yeah. And so 15 kilometers pass and I start to, my feet don't feel a bit squidgy. It's not a bit wet. It's not normal, is it? It's starting to hurt a little bit. It's like, oh God, what's going on now? But I've got to get my time, so I'm not stopping and not having a look. And there's nothing I could do anyway.
I mean, you could stop. You can't say there's nothing you could have done.
But what am I going to do? No one's going to pick me up and carry me across the line, officer and a gentleman style.
I would have. You might have had to wait a while for me to get there, but I'd have been there for you.
Fair enough. And so I had to slow down a lot, and I was practically walking back to the finish line. I had a friend that I was running with. He'd finished a lot sooner than me. That was always part of the plan. Wasn't fussed about that, but he'd waited for me at the line and basically had to pretty much push me across the line because I was in loads and loads of pain in my feet. And I cross my line, get you free flapjack, get you free water, get your medal.
All worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Get some biscuits. And then I take my shoes and socks off and discover that pretty much every single one of my toes has a blister.
Can I just say, Sam, as you were describing your feet, the face Dan was pulling was that of a man trying a marathon bar for the first time.
Who doesn't like nuts? Yeah.
Okay. Crikey, that's really unlucky. So we're talking,
Yeah.
what, 10 blisters at least?
At least. Some had multiple. So, you know.
Oh, gosh.
So that was a new one for me. Not experienced that before. So off to the shoe shop, everybody. It's time to get some new shoes.
Well,
Yay.
if you will run in your dress shoes, I mean, you're asking for trouble there, Sam, aren't you?
Maybe that's where
no
I did
one
go
told
wrong.
you to run in a three-piece suit, so you insisted.
I know. So you learn a lesson. So that was a new one for me. And it's unfortunately, when it comes down to like there are companies, right? When you start investigating this stuff, there are companies where their only USP is preventing people getting blisters on their feet whilst they are running. Like the time and effort and science that has gone into this very, very specific window of concern of of people just trying to do a little bit of exercise is like, I am in a position now where I could spend hundreds, if not thousands, trying to stop blisters appearing on my feet. My father-in-law's advice was just Vaseline.
Did you tell him what the issue was?
I think you just need to do a lot of training in running bare feet. So you need to really build up those kind of calluses on the bottom of your feet. Because once you've done that and you can run barefoot, then you don't have to worry about blisters, really.
Yeah, because the hobbits are barefoot, aren't they?
Exactly. Answer me this. Did the hobbits ever get blisters?
If they did, Tolkien was too much of a wimp to write about it.
I think there's your answer.
We all remember when they make it to Rivendell and Elrond hands them a load of gels.
Isn't
The
it
flapjack.
What part of the Silmarillion do they discuss the blisters of the Fellowship?
No.
Are we doing this again? This is great. Can I just say that I really enjoyed that from last episode. That
Yeah.
we just gave a theme song to
Yeah.
what we're gonna talk about.
A little
I
leitmotif.
really like that.
So it's a time of year for me where I'm not going on holiday, and all I want to play is something light, frothy, and platformy, basically.
Yeah.
So I have just bought brand new, although it was a reduced price, Lego Batman: Legacy of the Dark Knight.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, I remember hearing about this quite a long time ago and just being fascinated because the announcements had really kind of put a lot of emphasis into, yes, it's a Lego Batman game, but it's Lego Batman meets Arkham, the Arkham Origins game, the Arkham Knight game, the Arkham City game, all that stuff.
Yeah, the Arkham
Asylum,
series.
and how it was going to be using the kind of the combat system from those games in a Lego game, which is like very antithetical to each other there. So I am really interested because I do enjoy the Lego games, especially kind of when I can play them with my little boy because they're not particularly taxing. I loved all the Arkham games, so I am interested to see how that hybrid of those two types of games, which are very far apart, how do they come together?
Well, it's a really interesting question because I don't have much experience with Lego games, I should say. I've always wanted to pick up one and play it because they look like really, really good fun. And I love Lego, but for whatever reason, I've never picked one up. And I know that this slightly deviates from the typical model of a Lego game from what I'm hearing. So when you think of a Lego game, Dan, obviously putting aside the fact that we know that it's like you're playing as Lego figures, bits of the world are made of Lego, like mechanically, what is typically found within a Lego game? How is it usually structured?
I think with the things I enjoy about the Lego games, and this probably the big starting point for Lego games would have been Lego Star Wars. That was the big one that made everyone kind of sit up and take notice with them, because that was taking that established property, parodying it in a clever way. Now, as a result, basically those Lego games have spawned to every IP you can imagine, good and bad in there. But then also within that, you've got that whole element of building certain things within the world. Now, unlike the game I talked about a while back, Lego Voyagers, where you do feel like you're actually building, this one, the Lego games typically are more press square and blah 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 blah. The thing gets built, and you get coins. You can move around. It's a bit of open world. But I've always just enjoyed the look of them, the design of them, the humor to them, and I think you see that with something like Batman works really well in that environment. Obviously, we have the kind of Lego Batman working really well because you have that juxtaposition of the Dark Knight, the broody guy, brilliantly switched over. It's brilliantly kind of combined with that silliness of the Lego games, and that's why that works so well. So that's what I look for when I'm playing those kinds of games.
Yeah, okay. The analogy I'm going to go for to describe this game is it's like Sam's wife's tiffin.
I'm glad you said tiffin.
Your wife has incredibly many talents, an incredible human being, but they're also a very talented baker. And they make tiffin, and they will freeform it and put, like, they'll say, what do you want in it? And they'll throw this and this and this into it. And you'll take a bite and think, oh, I'm getting a bit of cornflake here. Oh, I'm taking another bite. I'm getting a bit of Malteser here. And that's kind of what this game is, really, where the whole of it feels like it hangs together, but there'll be certain moments where I'm in it thinking, okay, this feels a little bit kind of broody in Arkham, the Batman Arkham games, and other areas where it feels very childlike and quite glib. And to start off with, I found it quite disarming, but I think that's because I've never played a Lego game before. It begins like Batman Begins. You're Bruce Wayne. You're with your parents. You're about to go to the cinema, and you're running through the garden, and you'll be saying things like, "I love my parents," and you're like, "Oh God."
Immediately, that's the kind of humour that I enjoy.
That's a Lego.
Yeah, it is, and it's very funny, like skipping along and stuff. And like another reason why the Tiffin analogy really, really works is what this game does is, as it says in the title, this is Legacy of the Dark Knight. So this is not just creating an interesting admixture between the Arkham games, which have been very, very successful, and the Lego games, but this is trying to smash together, throw it into a mixing bowl and let it set in the fridge all of Batman's history. And those histories
that's a lot of history.
Yeah, so it's basically, but it's picking and choosing the ingredients that work. So obviously, when you're looking at the origin of Batman, there's only really been one film that has done that in enough detail, and that is Batman Begins. So for the bulk of the beginning of the game, the kind of tutorial bit, it is all Batman Begins pretty much. But then as you kind of arrive in Gotham, you get this really interesting mix of, okay, I've got a character here who's from Batman Begins, Flash, but I'm driving in the Batmobile that's the one from the Batman that came out a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the Penguin in this sounds like Colin Farrell's portrayal of the Penguin, but he looks like the Penguin from Batman Returns, played by Danny DeVito. So it's this really interesting kind of overlap. It's not like they're creating some kind of multiverse within this where you get to move between these universes. It is still the same universe. And there's these lovely little Easter eggs as well, where the person playing Jim Gordon, Colin McFarlane, actually played the original commissioner in Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. He was then replaced by Gary Oldman as the commissioner. So there's these other layers kind of happening here. I'm not too far into it. I'm a few hours into it right now, but it does not feel like it's trying to copy or parody or be an imitation of the Arkham series. Where the Arkham series comes into play is in the combat and the grappling, where, oh my word, I cannot encapsulate the feeling of suddenly getting back into that combat system, because many have tried, let's be honest, because it is a great combat system. So for listeners who have not played the Arkham games, it's basically just mashing a button to punch to build up kind of points to kind of then go for a kind of not a killing move because you're Batman, but like a finisher of some sort, looking for the symbol on another player, another enemy approaching you to then kind of deflect that and go punch. It does that effortlessly. The flow of that is amazing. There's also a little bit of open world, which kind of speaks to the Arkham City aspects of the Arkham series. So I am traveling around a Gotham City. There are tons of little Easter eggs for me here, but also lots of collectibles for me, Riddler trophies, lots of other stuff. I can also upgrade my gear. Again, like, I know this is not something relatively new, but this is not what I was expecting from a Lego game. I generally thought it was going to be very light arcade kind of stuff, but actually there's a lot of teeth to this, genuinely. And also, like, I've just got an upgrade where I've changed my bat suit to be the one from, like, the Nightfall Batman, where it's like the blue suit with the yellow utility belt and the yellow symbol. But also, I can change Jim Gordon's costume as well as I'm moving through it, or any other playable characters, I should say, as well.
I think that's the interesting thing about the Lego games is there have been so many different things, and I think there is a definite kind of curve around the quality that you get. So, for example, like my little boy's got The Incredibles, Lego The Incredibles, which is basically just the film run through Lego. So that's not as interesting. Whereas you look at something like the Lego Star Wars games, that was interesting. Yes, it still went through the films, but it was doing interesting stuff. And I think that's what it sounds like here with Batman, that it's not just a straightforward idea. They've really thought about how can you blend different things. And it is interesting that kind of, because what I was going to ask was like, well, which version of the Joker are they going to look at? Because there is so many wonderful versions, both in the films, but also obviously the games as well. There are so many great versions of the Joker. So it's interesting you say with the Penguin that they're kind of able to combine different versions. It might look one way but sound another way, and that kind of thing. So that is really interesting. But from what it sounds like you're explaining, it seems to be leaning into all of the adaptations, whether that's obviously video games with the Arkham games, the films. Perhaps there's things around kind of the Adam Westness of Batman. Maybe that will show up. Is there anything leaning towards the comics directly themselves, or is it just the adaptations? Because that is probably the most kind of connective tissue that people have when looking at this, that they'll make that connection with, rather than an obscure comic.
Yeah, so like at the moment, in terms of my encounter with comic-related stuff, there'll be like certain puns in certain like buildings' names, say for example, or the skins, like costumes you can kind of wear. So there's one where I can kind of I can dress as Batman from the 30s, and Jim Gordon can be dressed as Jim Gordon from the 30s, say for example. But there'll probably be more as I encounter them, really. Yeah, and just knowing what to pick and what to jettison, I think, has been a really interesting creative choice for them, really, having to try and sculpt a narrative that around this kind of bricolage of all these different elements from this history. Almost like what happens in Enter the Spider-Verse, really, in that regard, except that all the universes are kind of contained within one universe, let's say, for example, and they have to kind of fit in together. And they do. Like, I'm not going to ever see any other Jim Gordon. The Alfred we've got in this game is kind of a really the way the actor does the voice for Alfred is really interesting. It is a combination. It almost sounds like Michael Caine and Michael Gough, who played the Alfreds in the film version. I can't really hear Andy Serkis much in it. So it's interesting. They've that's really quite a pointed choice, because that affects the dynamic with Bruce and Alfred. And they've not gone for a young Rob Pattinson. They've not gone for a young Rob Pattinson. It's more of a Christian Bale type young Batman, as in Batman Begins, as it were, really, here.
Who is the voice of Batman? Is it Hamish Linklater?
No, it's Shai Matheson, who I'm not familiar with their work at all, really. But the interesting thing that apparently is quite distinctive from this and other Lego games is this is the first Lego game to use Unreal Engine 5. So the Lego characters in it, like, they really do look like the kind of Lego I've got downstairs. It is extraordinary. But yeah, it's held within this kind of gritty Arkham City aesthetic. It's a really interesting mix.
For the sake of brevity, I'm going to ask a question. It's going to sound mean, but I'm just doing it because I don't want to take up a lot of people's time. Is there a single original idea in this game?
No, not that I've encountered so far, no. But that's not really what I wanted from it, to be frank.
But I think that's my issue with Lego games. Is it's just so much stuff, and all they're doing is trading off other people's ideas, and it's kind of like what if memes but video games. And I would just imagine that for me would just get incredibly tiresome after a long period of time. And like the Lego, like, I can never really understand what differentiates one Lego game from the next, because they'll do like, or Harry Potter 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Yeah. And then they'll do Harry Potter the collection. They'll do Star Wars episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and they'll do Star Wars the Skywalker collection. And that sense of just endlessly recycling and recycling and recycling because they know their audience is slightly younger, slightly easier to please. Just as always, like, I have never played a Lego game for, say, more than half an hour because I found them just incredibly tedious. A bit like the Lego Batman movie, because I didn't really enjoy that either because it was just relentless. But that did have original ideas, so I did watch that all the way through.
Well, I think what you're saying there, Sam, is kind of similar to kind of my point with a lot of the Lego games, where it does feel like it's a skin slapped on top of the game. For it, just as an example, and I've not played the game, it may be very good, and I've just not played it. But when they have kind of the Horizon Zero Dawn Lego game, I'm kind of like, I don't know why I'd want to play that. Really, it's a Lego game of a video game. That doesn't make much sense to me. So I'm not really interested in that. But by the sounds of it, with something like Lego Batman, I think it did it with Star Wars, and I think there is a few bits here and there kind of throughout that it does manage to do that. I think perhaps when they want to really dig into an IP, they are successful with it. It's not just a skin, and they are able to do some fun stuff. And obviously the Lego Star Wars stuff, that was where it kind of started. So that's where they were finding their feet, and they were doing interesting stuff there. And when they found a formula that worked, then kind of the conveyor belt started, and everything just came off the line then over and over and over again, and they became a skin. I am very much interested in Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. All of the references, Chris, you're pointing to there, I'm really interested to see in a Lego Batman environment. I really enjoyed the Lego Batman movie. I think when you talked about it on the pod, Sam, you kind of really down on it, and then I think a lot of us watched it afterwards. Like, I thought that was really quite fun. I really enjoyed it. I like some of the dynamics in that. I mean, that's an interesting thing that you've got this Lego Batman game looking at all these different adaptations, and you do have Lego Batman as its own entity in the background of all this. When you mentioned Alfred, like, when I think of Lego Batman, I know an Alfred from the Lego Batman universe. So it's interesting that it's a whole new side of it as well then.
I think it speaks to just sometimes I think that kind of inner child. Like for me, I don't want anything more from this game than just the ability just to drive the Batmobile around, and I can choose the type of Batmobile I drive around, and to kind of just grapple from above to actually walk around the Batcave. And that's fine, but there's nothing original in the sense of, like, this isn't a game that I'll necessarily ever play ever again. It's just something I've been craving right now at the moment. It's just something light, frothy, unforgettable, and occasionally will make me laugh, and something I can kind of drop in and drop out of, really. And I think there is potentially a place for that, but I think also it's helped by the fact I've never played a Lego game before, so stuff that's relatively new for me will perhaps be, understandably, quite derivative and just feeding that capitalist machine over and over and over again, looping. But then again, I never get sick of your wife's tiffin, Sam.
Glad you said tiffin, but you can't eat too much of it.
You can't. Fun fact, though, Lego Batman is my mother-in-law's one of her 2 favourite films of all time.
Wow.
Fantastic. Please say the other one's something like The Godfather or
Schindler's List.
Citizen Kane. Yeah, Schindler's List. What a double bill.
The other one is Chocolat.
Well, there you go.
I mean, very diametrically opposed film.
Question. In the last episode, we all revealed that we all have a bond that is our bond. Mine being Dalton, Dan's being Craig, Sam's being Brosnan. Do you all have a Batman?
Oh, great question.
Christian Bale for me.
Because I also know what Sam's thinking. I know what Sam's going to say, Dan. He's going to say, well, actually, you have to have a Bruce Wayne and you have to have a Batman, because actually those two don't necessarily.
I disagree. So you've got to choose the person who can encapsulate both.
I was actually going to say you've got to have a Batman and you've got to have an Alfred, because Batman is defined by his Alfred.
Mine's going to be Kevin Conroy.
Cheeky.
Very cheeky. That was the voice of my childhood.
Would it be Kevin Conroy without Mark Hamill?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Well, because they are the yin and the yang. They are two sides of the same coin.
My favourite Alfred is the one, and I can't remember his name, but who spanned the series of the best Batman films, like Batman and Robin,
Michael Gough.
Batman Forever. Yep. He's a cracking Alfred. And you know what? I've got a big soft spot for Val Kilmer. So there you go.
I've got a soft spot for Batman Forever as well. Absolutely.
He was my first Batman.
I remember that.
I love that film.
That time watching that as a child. It's a brilliant kids film.
Yeah, I think that's going to have a renaissance. I think that's going to become even more of a cult classic. No, I generally do think that.
That type of movie making is going to have a
Yeah.
renaissance. I think that just absolute, especially, I could especially see DC going that route again, where it is just absolutely bonkers buffoonery, as Tommy Lee Jones would call it.
Yeah, who famously got on like a house on fire with Jim
Jim
Carrey.
Carrey.
I presume your feet are okay now, son.
Yeah, they're okay. Even though, like, I mean, I don't know how much detail to go into, but I can walk now, and they've kind of, some of them have developed sort of like skin hats.
I don't think you need to go into that much detail.
No. Crikey, no. 2 words I do not want to hear juxtaposed together: skin and hat. I saw a video the other day, and it was a quote-unquote health professional professing to this as something that to basically cure your feet, for any ailments, whether they be, whatever, on your feet. It was a combination of, now there was 2 ingredients you put in this washing up bowl. I can't remember one of them, but the other one was definitely Listerine. And you soak your feet in it for a prolonged period of time, and that apparently cures everything. Everything. Well, everything pertaining to your feet.
I was going to say, it's not going to solve like existential issues.
No.
Yeah. So, but Listerine was a key.
And specifically, I think blue Listerine, which I think is like Listerine Original, I think.
What? Why? Have you ever known anyone who's put toothpaste on a spot?
Yeah, I've heard that.
You've had it or you've done it?
I think I've probably done it, but I've definitely heard that. I think I've probably done it at some point. In the same way that you can put like antiseptic cream on it, and it kind of draws out the badness. I'm not a scientist.
You started that really well. You did really well there, Dan.
I got as far as it draws out and then my brain went, nope, I've got you this far. It's up to you now.
Antiseptic was a great start, and then it just went downhill from there.
Well, I was being gentle. I didn't want to make it graphic, so I didn't want to talk about what goes on inside a spot. I was trying to just be nice and be gentle, and I called it the badness. I didn't start talking about skin hats.
I remember as a kid, I had a little chemistry set, and I think I was inspired by one of Sam's favourite books, George's Marvellous Medicine, where I made this elixir, which you took one sip of it, you would burp immediately.
Sorry.
We're here again, Sam. We're here again.
So you made something in a child's chemistry set. Was it
when I was a child? When I was a child, I should say.
Yeah, I know.
Not as an adult. Yeah.
I know.
It wasn't like Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Okay, but first question: was that actually the purpose of what you were making? What you're trying to make?
No, it was a bit like penicillin. It was just a happy accident.
Okay, but and so what you made was a burping serum.
Exactly. Yeah, like a
which has its uses.
It is bold to put it up there next to penicillin.
It is very bold.
That is a strong lead in.
Yeah.
It's just like penicillin.
We've all been there. Oh, I just need to release the gas. And if anyone here has watched Beard Meets Food, you'll see that when they are trying a big food challenge, they always ask for a Coke or a Pepsi or whatever. And I was like, why? No, why? That's just going to fill you up. And he says, no, it makes me burp and actually helps me fit more food in. So if Chris can remember what the recipe is, we could quercetin or penicillin,
patent pending.
And if we can remember what that is, then we could be onto an absolute winner.
Okay, you ready? Do you need a pen at all? Or anything?
Lay it on me. I mean, we're recording this. I think it's safe.
Yeah. Okay. So it's basically 1 part toothpaste, 3 parts lemonade.
Is it a specific kind of toothpaste?
No, pretty indiscriminate.
But like, hang on a minute. 1 part toothpaste to 2 parts lemonade.
3 parts
Three
lemonade.
parts.
3 parts. Sorry.
Three
Is that,
parts.
I mean, that's
Three
only like a
parts.
shot. Is it? So it's.
Well, it depends how much you're making. If
There's
you're
a
making
lot-
a
there's
liter
a lot
of
of
it,
tooth-
that's 70 milliliters. That's 70 milliliters, or well, how much? If you're making a liter, yeah, that's 700 milliliters of lemonade and 300 milliliters of toothpaste. I don't know. I'm not that great at maths, but
Yeah,
that
I had
sounds
it in
about right
like
to me.
I had it like in little test tubes, which you could put little lids on, shake it up.
And like, did you use it as a prank on anyone? Like just before a big speech? I'll just have this and you'll be right.
No, I was almost like one of those, like in Red Dead Redemption, you have like the traveling salesman who's got that kind of elixir for
Snake
life.
oil salesman.
Yeah, snake oil salesman. I was a bit like that, but only in the confines of my own home growing up.
Well, I think of all the things that we could remake, mixing some lemonade and some toothpaste together sounds within the realms of possibility. So I think this is something that we try next time we're all together.
Yeah.
I just need to check what kind of like clinical assessments did you put this through, or were you the only kind of
Yeah, were the
Subject.
Lancet there, Chris? I've been getting back in to solo board gaming
Yes.
in a big way again. I don't know if it's because we are soon going to be welcoming our second child and anticipating what that brings, or I actually think it's that the market has changed a bit, and I think that there has been a recent sort of big glut of big solo projects, and I think that's for a number of reasons. First of all, a game sells better if you can say it's got a solo mode on its box,
Yeah.
even if the solo mode can sometimes be a little bit tacked on. And I think that, we've often talked about, the shelf of shame or the shelf of longing or whatever you want to call it in terms of or games that aren't going to get played. I think a lot of companies have realized that actually solo games have a big market because people know that people buy them because they know they're going to play them. So I think a lot of effort has been put into actually creating really good solo games. So I've been having a lot of fun with a lot of different titles, some of which I may cover over the coming weeks. I've still yet to play Ace of Spades that I got at UKGE. I've just backed another game on Kickstarter called Rolling Deep, which looks really interesting. It's meant to be like a dice rolling version of Balatro, which is kind of another thing that has really spurred on a lot of solo game design recently is big hits like Nubby's Number Factory and Balatro and Clover Pit, where they are very, very successful solo games that are based off of sort of a core set of simple game mechanics like poker hands, or like falling balls down and hitting loads of pegs like in Nubby's Number Factory, and then ways of manipulating that, which is a kind of a natural thing that you find in a lot of board games. So I think the rise of those kind of video games has also sort of spurred on a rise of video games, and Rolling Deep is something that's meant to be similar. It's got a really nice thing where you can actually change what is on the dice that you are rolling. Like that's its big thing.
Yeah.
It's like as you get upgrades, you actually like click these little things onto the dice that you're rolling to basically improve them as upgrades. So I backed that recently. What else have I been playing? I'm playing another game which I definitely do want to talk about another time, which is called Witchcraft ! But I think the game that has definitely impressed me most recently is one called Unstoppable.
Ooh.
And if you are in the board game sphere, you might have come across either Unstoppable in its original guise, or you may have seen the very successful Kickstarter that ran recently, which was a dungeon crawler Carl version of this game alongside an RPG. I think Pete has mentioned Dungeon Crawler Carl on a podcast, or whether he did it just as friends. It's a very, very popular, novel series. So that's how I came across Unstoppable. I came across this campaign for Dungeon Crawler Carl, and thought, oh, that looks quite interesting, but I don't really have any affinity with the actual series. I didn't really like the art style. But then I discovered that it all originates from this original design on Unstoppable. So, what is Unstoppable, I hear you ask? Well, it is a solo game. It's designed by John DeClaire, who has made a lot of very popular games like Space Base, Cubitos, and the one where it takes most of its cues from, which is Mystic Vale. So, Mystic Vale's big thing, and Mystic Vale was a game that was released like back when I was starting to get into board games, so it's like 2016. And its big thing was it had a mechanic where you would have cards that were like pre-sleeved. So they were sleeved in these like translucent card sleeves. And as the game went on, you upgraded them by adding new cards, but into the sleeve itself. So you were kind of upgrading the cards. It was like a deck building game. Sorry, Dan. It's like a deck building game. When you were upgrading cards, you were adding the cards into the sleeve and therefore making better cards that then you could use later on. And that was an idea that never really that seemed really great at the time. And I thought, oh, this is going to really kick on. You're going to see lots of different games that utilize that kind of functionality because it seemed really, really clever. And I think for one reason or another, probably expense, it never really kicked on. And Unstoppable is really the only second time that I've seen a game utilize a similar kind of methodology and mechanics, and it's designed by the same person. So Unstoppable is I guess it's kind of a game set in a almost like superhero-esque universe. Like the game is you are a person who is part of this world, and there is a big bad, and over the course of a game, you have got to take down this big bad. And it's I don't want to say fantastical because I think that's like the wrong descriptor, but it's kind of, as I said, like superhero-esque. It's that kind of world where you can have things like guns and weapons, but you can also have like lasers and armor and quite like sort of maybe say like sci-fi, like far future. I don't know. It's kind of a weird sort of theme.
Yeah, it looks a little bit kind of like a generic kind of like sci-fi kind of world, doesn't it? Yeah. And
I think it's fair to say on the surface it is quite generic. Like the game comes with a little booklet which kind of explains the world. And I thought, oh, this looks interesting. And I opened it up and it was just a wall of text. And I admit that I then closed it and I've just not engaged with it again at any point because it just didn't look that great. The one thing I will now point out about Unstoppable before I go into explaining how the game actually works is it has to probably be one of the worst rule books that I've read in a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and especially for a game like this where there is a lot of literally internal mechanics, even describing how to set the game up is really ill-defined in the rulebook. So the game borrows a lot from Mystic Vale, right? So when you get the box, you have lots of plastic sleeves and lots of cards, and it's kind of like, right, the first thing you've got to do is kind of create what the base game should be, right? Which involves putting lots of cards back to back. So on one side they're one thing, on one side they're another. But the rulebook does a real terrible job of explaining what those cards are, where you find them, specifically what should be going where, which way they should be facing. Like, it just kind of assumes a lot of knowledge, which, again, this is a card system and a mechanic that's not really been present in board gaming for nearly 10 years now. And you know that, I think it's quite, I don't know whether it's true or not, that apocryphal study of Hasbro they did where the most excited you get when you open a board game is when you take the wrapper off and you open the lid.
Yeah.
Like, it was the biggest, if that is true, like, I had the absolute crash off a cliff.
Right.
when I read this rule book, because I was like, this is awful, and like this is going to take me quite a long time to actually just figure out how to set up the game, because it's critical to the game's success, right? Just setting it up, just making sure that the right cards are associated with the other cards. However, once I got through that barrier and worked through that, what has been revealed to me is what I would essentially call Hang On a Minute, the board game. And the way that this game plays with upgrading, interactions, possibilities, but most importantly, power curve is exceptional. And I have loved every minute I spent with this game, other than the first sort of 30 minutes. And I don't think I'm yet to win. It's very, very tough. I don't think I'm yet to actually win a campaign that I've been through. But I have enjoyed a lot of what I've played with this game.
Because I'm really intrigued by this game, Sam, because I know the Dungeon Crawler Carl game has been very popular. Many people have said the same about this game as being in their top 10s, because this came out in 2025. Mm-hmm. It is a deck builder, but it does something really interesting with the deck building mechanic. Can you talk a little bit? Like, I'm really interested in terms, for example, how you draw cards in this game, because it's not like the typical... It's not like a typical deck builder, for example, where you just have this pile next to you and every round you draw a card. Mm-hmm. From there, there's something really interesting going on here, which I think is part of that dopamine hit that you get every round you play this game, even if you're losing.
And it's one of the drawing cards thing is really interesting, right? Because, and this is one of the reasons why the rule book is really bad. Because if I was writing that rule book, it would be one of the first things I wrote in that rule book in a big block text, which would be, you do not draw cards in this game. You will draw 3 cards to start off a game, and that will be it. At no other point will you be taking cards off the top of your deck. And that's really important. And I think from a mechanics and interaction point of this game, you kind of go, right, I'm starting to understand that's bonkers. This is a deck building game where I'm not drawing cards. Right? How do I interact with it? Well, let me tell you why. Brilliantly written rulebook by Sam. You have this deck of cards, right? So you build your deck to start with, but your deck of cards is also your deck of enemies, because each of the cards is double-sided. On one side, you've got your card where you do things like collect health, generate money, generate attack to fight enemies, generate armor to defend yourself, all the typical things that you'd get from a deck builder. But on the other side of a card are the enemies that you fight. So when you set up for your first round, that's the only time you get those 3 cards. You get those 3 cards in your hand. Then you get 3 enemies placed out in front of you. But remember, they're your cards. So if you want those cards into your hand, you've got to defeat those enemies that are in front of you. And the design of the cards is such that you always know what is on each side of a card when you look at it. And when I referenced earlier to the hold up a minute nature of this game, it all comes down to, but this is how I draw cards. And here's the puzzle. If I defeat that enemy, that goes into my hand, and then that's going to give me this power, which will enable me to defeat that enemy, and then that will go into my hand, and then that will enable me to get enough money to then buy this upgrade. And what's great about upgrades in this game is they immediately go into your hand. If you want to apply them into a card in your hand, they just slot into your card, and then you can immediately use it on that turn. So every single turn, especially in the late game, is all about, right, what is the order that I am going to do things in, and how can I wring out every single decision that I make in order to maximize the impact of the order. And that's everything from the upgrade, the timing of buying and purchasing upgrades, to the specific cards that I want to defeat and then turn over and then add into my hand. And that, for me, especially as a solo game, is such an incredible puzzle. But it's a puzzle that only works as a solo experience, right? Because no one wants to be sat there watching me going, hold on, I think I've got hold on, I think I've, I'm just gonna play that back to someone. And that's the other good thing about it being a great solo game, is that no one's watching you. So I'll just take that back. Right, let's just start again. Right, I had these 3 cards, and then I did that, and then no, but if I just put that upgrade in first, that gives me this, and then I can do it, and that's it. That's how I solved it, right? And then on to the next round. And that mixture, that sort of melting pot of decision making, is just what this makes. Like, everything is a critical decision. And when it comes to like the late game, that's when the power curve kicks in, right? Because upgrades are also double-sided. And every time you apply an upgrade to your card, you are upgrading the enemy that is on the back of it. So as you get stronger, as you upgrade your deck, as you are doing more things and giving yourself more firepower, you're also giving the enemies that are on the other side of them more firepower to hit you back. So as you get better, the deck gets better. And that is a fantastic way of managing that power curve. So you never feel like you are absolutely bulldozing through the enemies that you're facing, because they are always growing as you are. And then there's the shop, which is like 6 different levels of things, and you can only buy stuff if you're on specific levels, and that's a bit of an added, complication to it. But again, an interesting puzzle where you're trying to weigh up, right, do I upgrade my level that I'm on to be able to buy stuff from the shop this turn, or do I just try and level up naturally and defeat these enemies in orders? Like, it is just a massive decision soup, and I love it.
So a quick question I had, and this probably speaks to my lack of playing solo games as much as anything else. To me, like, solo games are not so much simple games, but they're games that are simple to kind of pick up and play. So whether it's things like the exit games or that you can just pick and play, you can play that as a solo experience, or often in small boxes or card games, something that doesn't take a long setup. When I look at kind of some of the images, some of the artwork, and kind of I'm looking at some examples of people playing this game, it feels quite a big game. And you've already talked about the fact that it is, the rulebook itself is quite impenetrable, and there's a lot of setup. Obviously, it is able to be played as a 2-player experience, but I think by the sounds of it, it's much better as that 1-player experience. Do you think, is that large setup in any way kind of an obstacle to playing this game? Because obviously you do have to commit to playing it. You're spending a long time setting it up. You're not going to want to then drop out of it again, because it's going to take a long time to clear up as well. So it's not something that you can dip in and out of. You have to commit time to. Is that an obstacle at all?
It's like with anything that you're interacting with, any different art form or any different medium or any entertainment, right? Some nights you just want to sit down and watch reruns of The Office, right? And sometimes you want to sit down and you want to watch,
Chocolat.
And you make that decision, and you approach those different things in different ways, right? When you're just sitting down and watching The Office, whatever goes, it's just kind of rolling with it, easy setup, whack it on, chill out and watch it. But if you're sitting down and watching something like Chocolat, right, gonna make myself a cup of tea, gonna get myself a drink, maybe some snacks, like I'm ready, I'm set in, like I'm gonna be doing it. And I think with solo gaming, especially how it is now, that's the similar approach, right? Tonight I'm gonna play Unstoppable. I'm gonna need my table, I'm gonna need some time to set it all up, and then this is gonna be me for an hour or so playing this game on my own. For me, once you get through the initial organizational setup of it, putting all the cards where they're meant to be, the game itself comes with a really nice insert where everything is pre-portioned out, everything is set up to help you set the game up and then tear the game down, because obviously you're spending a lot of the game manipulating the cards themselves. And I think this is probably another one of the reasons why this as a format hasn't picked up, because you can't just pick up all the cards, throw them in the box and then play them again, because you are literally making unique cards as you're playing. But the insert of the box actually does a really good job of portioning up like different levels of cards, different character cards, different enemy cards, and then when you start a game, it tells you, right, you're going to need this, and this to set up, and then everything's done. There are some play mats that you can get for it as well. I mean, they're quite hard to get hold of in this country, and I have tried, and I've almost nearly spent an exorbitant amount of money to get them. But all they do is basically just like give you like placeholders and a guide of where to put things on a table, and obviously make that experience, that solo experience of you on your own, a bit more luxuriant and indulgent as an experience. But I think you're right to kind of call that out, because I think that Unstoppable specifically, unlike things like Witchcraft or Ace of Spades or even something like Under Falling Skies, I think Unstoppable does have a very sort of rich experience that that comes along. I think it asks a lot of you in terms of investment of a player, in terms of setup and commitment to that. So it's almost the same. I mean, the same, but Chris will know what I mean when I say this. It's a bit like Mage Knight, right?
Yeah.
So Mage Knight is 10 times the setup and the engagement that Unstoppable is, but it's very, very similar in terms of, right, you're going to get out of this what you put in, and you're going to have to spend some time setting this up. You're going to have to spend some time really just making sure everything's in the right place. But once you've done that, don't worry, we've got you. The game has got you. Like, you just sit back and enjoy the mechanics. Like, you're in for an amazing ride, but it's just going to take a little bit of time to get there, which again doesn't help that the rulebook is bobbins, but the game itself is excellent.
I've been watching something which I wasn't sure if I was going to bring it to the table here, because I'm kind of on the fence about it.
Okay.
So this is a show on Netflix called The Boroughs. Have any of you watched it yet? Have you seen it?
I watched every single episode in one evening.
I watched the first episode, Dan.
I think that was it. It was half term. My wife and son were away at Centre Parks, and I watched the first episode, and I thought, I either watch all of these episodes now while I'm on my own in the house and have a few beers and a few snacks, or I'm never going to finish this series. So I just watched it all.
So this is the Boroughs, a show that I always want to call the Boroughs because it's spelt like in England we would say borough, but everyone in the show refers to it as the Boroughs, so that is the correct pronunciation. It just bugs me every time. So this is the Boroughs. It's kind of the latest kind of fantasy sci-fi-esque show on Netflix. Big kind of headline thing, kind of executive produced by the Duffer Brothers off the back of...
Yeah.
I mean, I get the feeling that if the Duffer Brothers have looked at a script, they'll say, it's brought to you by them because of the behemoth that is Stranger Things. I'm a huge fan of Stranger Things. Even like the last series of Stranger Things got a lot of like criticism. I really enjoyed it. It did what I wanted Stranger Things to be doing. It was getting bigger and bigger action sequences, all that stuff. Loved it. No problems for me. So I am a big fan of theirs. But it is very much a case of if they even look at a script, Netflix just want to slap their name on it to bring people in. And to be fair, it's worked. I started watching this off the back of there. So I look at the Boroughs and I've described it to other people as if Stranger Things is kind of aliens and monsters meets high schoolers, this is aliens and monsters meet elderly people. So the Boroughs is a retirement community, kind of a private company retirement community in this pastiche, like it's kind of like 50s aesthetic design in the middle of the desert in America. And Alfred Molina, Sam's favorite actor of all time, at the start of the show is moving into this community. We find out that he was due to be moving there with his wife, who kind of has died in the recent past, and for whatever reason, after signing the contracts, he's not able to get out of it after his wife's died, which again is a bit of a strange thing. So you get a lot of strange elements happening here that don't quite click, all seem a little bit off. And on the back of this, you have, obviously, it's a Duffer Brothers, or at least Netflix want you to think it is. So there is kind of a monster aspect to it. And this comes in, this is the first 5 minutes of the show, where an elderly woman who's having a conversation with her husband over like a FaceTime thing, who is in another part of the community suffering with dementia. We see her speaking to him, and then she goes to bed, and while she's asleep, she's attacked by a monster, and then it kind of cuts to black. And the next thing we see, Alfred Molina's character is moving into that same house. Chaos and mystery ensues. So I think a lot of the attraction, I think, for a lot of people to this has been the kind of cast that they've used. Like, there's a lot of actors who we don't often see these days, a lot of kind of 90s actors or 80s actors. Obviously, Alfred Molina, we do see quite a lot of him, but people like Bill Pullman, we don't see too much of. Gina Davis, don't see a lot of Clark Peters, like some kind of actors who were in a lot of stuff perhaps when we were growing up. It's really nice to see them kind of in these new shows as well. I said I was a bit unsure about bringing this to the table because when I started watching it, I was very excited by it. from the opening shots, it felt Spielbergian. It felt like those kind of. It was reminding me of E.T. and that, not in terms of like because obviously E.T.'s not a monster. Maybe some people think it is, but that kind of idea, that idyllic kind of town and that kind of thing. But as I'm about halfway through now, and as I've gone through, it seems to be introducing more and more mysteries or elements, and it seems to be losing its way a little. Now, my concern at the moment is it doesn't quite know which mystery it wants to put its hat on, and it kind of needs to pick one. My concern is it doesn't feel like it's going that way. Sam, in your 8-hour binge of watching this, can you confirm or deny whether or not my fears are warranted, or I should ignore them and just enjoy the ride?
Difficult to say, really, because I think I had this program's number pretty much from the end of episode 1. I was like, all right, that's what's happening, and that's why that's happening, and that's who that is, and that's it, done. And then I was right, and I was like, oh, right, okay, well, that's good. Like, it does show its hand incredibly soon. Like,
Very
even in
soon.
the trailers, like, I was just really surprised by how soon it really sort of actually shows its hand. I thought it would go a bit longer to, like, really bed in that, like, strange weirdness of this community that they're in. Like, no one bats an eyelid that every TV is an old CRT set. Might even be older than that. Might be like an old Valve like set, but no one bats an eyelid and goes, well, hang on, we've got a unit in here that operates like an Alexa, but you won't allow us to have ultra high def TV. And they're like, oh, well, we don't talk about that. In terms of like the mystery of it, I would say that it kind of does wrap it up reasonably well. I think it gets more and more outlandish as it goes along and doesn't really put any effort into really explaining much of the mystery beyond why people are doing things and how they are doing things, but the actual genesis of the mysteries is never explained. But for me, there was that was fine, because I'm kind of all right with not knowing everything. For me, I think the biggest part of where this show is in a big misstep is how it actually deals with the characters that it's got and what it thinks it's trying to address in terms of its themes. So it's the themes that it thinks it's dealing with is getting old and trying to live your best life as you get older, and trying to not necessarily stay young, but trying to make sure that as your life continues, as you get older, you're still living a fulfilling and meaningful life, that you're not just left and forgotten. No, and that be it. And I think it thinks that is what it's trying to say, but ultimately, in the end, it has nothing to say about that at all. Whereas you compare it to something like Man on the Inside, which again I don't think is a very successful series, but I think it has a lot more to say about getting older and aging and how that restricts you, but also how that frees you and what that affords you in terms of experience and input and how much you can contribute to society. And I feel like it manages to do that in a really fun and engaging way with lots of great actors. However, when the Boroughs comes along, or the Boroughs, like, I think that there is some stunt casting which doesn't really work, and I think there are some great characters that are never filled out or explored in any meaningful way. And then you've got Alfred Molina in the middle of it, who's just kind of like, paycheck please, thank you very much, I'll see you next season. Oh no, I won't. So yes,
so big thumbs up then, Sam. Yeah.
When I was watching it, the first thing it made me feel of, and this is definitely not an insult, in some ways I had a strange nostalgia about it. It felt like this feels like it's been made in like the early 2000s, like the music,
Yeah.
the filmmaking style. Like your touchstones down was something Spielbergian. For me, it felt like that kind of golden age of a teenager. When you think about the films we got in the late 90s, early 2000s, that era, it felt like it was tapping into that kind of nostalgia. And the Duffer Brothers obviously know how to do that really, really well with Stranger Things, in part rejuvenating the kind of 80s culture. that a lot of my students subscribe to a lot of now, which is particularly galling considering I was born in that particular decade. It's really interesting. We've had a flurry of these. Sam has obviously mentioned A Man on the Inside, which has had its second season. I'm also thinking of like The Thursday Murder Club, which I really, really did not like whatsoever.
No.
At all. But then again, I don't think I'm the right audience for that film.
And that's the point that I was going to make, is whether we are actually the right audience for this, right? Because the moment you see the Boroughs, like the moment you see that set, like it is like the Truman Show coded, right? There is just so much in that artifice that as me watching that now, like I'm already like, there is something wrong with this. I'm looking for the mystery, I'm looking for the clues, and I'm putting one and one together, and I'm making two. But if that is not part of your media literacy, say you are slightly older and watching this, then I can possibly understand why it would be an intriguing tale, right? And maybe why you've got to release the sort of let the cat out the bag so early that they do, in order to keep that audience hooked who maybe haven't watched similar shows like this. But I would also say I think that is slightly patronizing of that audience as well, to kind of assume that would be the case, and you're kind of just cashing in on, as you said, Dan, making a mystery show for people who are of an older age. Because I feel like there are so many different properties that have done similar things, but yet have had a much wider and broader appeal than just one section of the audience.
In all this heat, I made the wonderful decision to go camping for the second time in my life. But yeah, a friend of mine was having her 40th and basically hired a field and wanted all of her best friends to come and just spend a weekend camping. And I've been camping, I think, once in my life. My wife has never been camping. She was not happy about the prospect of having to do that. But yeah, we went last weekend and we had a lovely time. Like, properly kind of made us look at it and think, you know what? I quite enjoy camping.
It's great fun.
Just the vibe is just really lovely. Especially we've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. Just like, it helped that we had just like a big field that we were all in. But like the fact that they can just mill about, like no one had screens, no one was on a phone or a Switch or wanting to watch another episode of
Boroughs.
Bros in Control or whatever my boy's watching at the moment.
You can still play Unstoppable though.
Couldn't
you
play
can
Unstoppable.
still play Unstoppable.
But yeah,
Okay.
so we bought a tent. We bought all the gubbins. Sadly, the inflatable beds we bought, inflatable camp beds, were brilliant for children. Terrible for adults, where we basically just lay on a cold floor all night while my kids had a lovely sleep. But yeah, we slept about 2 hours all night long.
The same degree of support that Sam's running shoes provided his feet.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The takeaway that we had was, my wife was like, well, if we just update some of our gear, get a blackout blind for the tent, so it's not as light in the morning, fix the bed, and yeah, like she's already looking for like camping tables and all that stuff. So,
oh my word, Dan,
Nice.
This is great.
At some point, you got to draw the line, okay? Because you're in dangerous territory now. Can I just warn you? Because you're at a point now where you've got to be really, really careful, because you might then end up to what my in-laws do when they go camping. This is
extraordinary.
So when they go camping, right? They have this massive tent, right? It's like you forget your rods that you have to put in through the tent lining. Theirs blows up, it's air, right? Fancy. I think they have like an 8-person tent just for the two of them. Wow. So they have their bedroom, then they'll have like a dressing room.
There's an upstairs.
Then they got a porch, which they will bring a rug for, so it's like a carpeted porch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then there's the kettle, the air fryer, the microwave, and the mini fridge.
I did think, as I was looking online, I had to keep telling myself, no, Dan, don't buy things. I limited myself to like a small camping table that can fold away, and like a few bug zappers, some torches, like all small stuff. But I was like very attentive, like, do I need a kettle and a stove? Don't forget, I was going for one night. We travelled, it was all the way down in Bournemouth. We were there for one night. We were there for less than 24 hours. And I was looking like, okay, do I need this? Do I need this? Do I need this? I was reminded of, remember that's the scene in Parks and Rec where they go camping and the Tom Haverford character basically he opens up his tent and it's got a big screen TV, he's got all his PlayStation, all that stuff, and it just his entire house is in this tent. He's like, this is what camping is, and he just kills the entire campsite with electricity.
Yeah, it's like when Sam told me about his parents-in-law, it just made me think of that image of when Gaddafi pitched his Bedouin tent in New York in 2009.
It's bonkers. It's like absolutely, and the thing is, it's not like it's their air fryer or microwave or kettle from home. No, they've bought specific. This is the camping air fryer. This is the camping microwave. This is the camping kettle and the camping fridge, and they're all separate items that come with them on their camping adventures. So just be careful, Dan.
But yeah, so camping is a new thing that I might be partaking in the future, which I'll be honest, I never thought I'd say. So
that's amazing. And let me know when you're going next, because I can give you my recipe for camp donuts.
Well, there we go.
I can break it down for you very quickly.
Go on then.
Right. 4 slices of white bread.
Okay.
Remove the crusts, pile them on top of each other, jam in between them.
I'd do that before you line them on top of each other, but
Yeah,
Each
don't try
own.
and slide it in between.
I've been reading online, Sam. Apparently, the Unstoppable Rulebook's really easy to read. So you then put that into quarters. So you've got 4 stacks, jam layered, 4 stacks.
Triangles or squares?
Squares.
It might matter.
Yeah.
Okay, squares.
It might matter. And then you get like a set of tongs and you pick them up and you dip that entire stack into pancake batter. And then you fry that in the pan, like on a stove. And then you just put sugar afterwards. You'll think you're having a donut.
Wow, that is wow.
I mean, I thought that was going to be a little less involved. I thought, okay, this is quite good. And then you stick it on a stick and then you roast it over a fire. No, frying pan, oil, stove, pancake batter, which means eggs, flour, milk.
Yeah, well, we used to do that. That's what we used to do in the Scouts. We used to do that in the Scouts, yeah.
Well, maybe the next time the 4 of us go away, or just the 3 of us, because it's Pete.
Might be too hot.
Then we go camping and we eat nothing but camp donuts. I'd love to see Pete trying to make camp donuts.
And if you've got indigestion, I've got something you can drink that will help,
If you'd like to let us know your favourite camp food, then do get in touch at stayinginpod on Instagram or on Facebook, or stayinginpod@gmail.com. Just send us an email and just make the subject line keeping it camp, just so Pete doesn't know what's going on. If you'd like to find out a bit more about what we might be up to, then as I said, go onto Instagram, or you can look back on the things that we've talked about by looking at our curated pages on BGG and also on Steam. So on those pages we put up all the board games, all the video games that we have spoken about, and it generates one big list, so you can look back at all of our archive and think, oh, that sounds interesting. I wonder what the guy said about that, and you'll be able to hear us chat. There is another thing that you can do for us, which is check out our playlists on Spotify. Will there be anything from The Dark Knight, Batman, all of it?
Yeah.
I can't remember the name.
Lego R, Batman TM, Legacy of the Dark Knight. Yeah, Simon Whiffenshaw's music from there, as well as John Pisano's music from the Boroughs will also be on there.
Fantastic. So if you want to find out where the playlists are and you use Spotify, then go to the description of the podcast in your podcast app. Is that it?
I'm going to say this next thing. It's going to be directed at Sam's feet. Take care.
Take care.